CIO News. I'm Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and Chief Editor at CIO News. Welcome to yet another episode on our series of New Edge Collaboration and Digital Customer Experience. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. In our today's series, we have Mr. Anil Sharma, the Chief Information Officer and a Transformation Leader of PepsiCo. Anil is a dynamic IT leader with high energy, versatile with more than 29 years of rich experience in delivering strategic solutions, large complex programs, IT infra, on-prem, cloud strategy, digital transformation, IT, OT, cybersecurity, and managing complex technology operations. Anil has significant experience with a proven track record of delivering large IT transformation programs, improving IT operations efficiency with automation, identifying and removing bottlenecks of productivity, and providing financial oversight and budget control. Anil's leadership since in the automobile, tier, telecom, food and beverage industries with a good understanding of business function and solutions. Welcome, Anil. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Khushbu.
Along with me today, I have Jeyavelan. He's the head India and Mecca business for unified communication at Tata Communication. Jay has 25 years of rich experience in collaboration business. Prior to Tata Communication, Jay was serving with BT. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, very good morning, Khushbu, and thanks for having me. And on behalf of Tata Communications, I welcome Anil for this CIO News meeting. Yeah.
Great. I'm sure it's going to be a great conversation. Just begin with Anil, my first question. PepsiCo is a brand we all are very close to, and we've been using it in our day-to-day lives. But I would love to hear from you about PepsiCo.
So PepsiCo is a great organization, and that is why I'm here for last so many years. It not only produce the best of the best products, which is good for you, but also provide an excellent culture for an employee, to work with them. It's a company, I think, which we call equal opportunity company, from that perspective. Great organization, very transparent, ethical company, and not compromise on our code of conduct, right? So that is how I see this company. Very innovative. We generally try to be ahead of the curve and ahead of the market in various and whether it is our product and services which we provide to the market, even for technologies and things which we use internally, to enable those products and services. So to be ahead of the curve, do a lot of innovation, from product perspective, also from technology adoption perspective, before we do mass rollout, mass adoption. So this is how I can, quickly summarize PepsiCo as a company.
Awesome. So, and my next question is, with the whole situation that we've gone through of COVID, and how did you collaborate with your employees, to solve project issues or, give a real-time project status to the stakeholders? So what were the best practices you followed?
So first of all, since we are a multinational company, most of our employees, are equipped to operate from wherever they are. When I say most means, excluding some of, the frontline people in the factories and manufacturing. Other than that, everyone is equipped, to operate from wherever they are. So if you are same capability, and tools availability which you have in office. So we did not have much impact because of the pandemic and after pandemic, but the impact came in a different way because the whole capacity of our setup was not planned to execute or to support 100% capacity working from home. So we did a lot of enhancement and invested a lot of money in terms of enhancing the capacity of our systems and tools which enable us the maximum workforce, operating from home. So that is one. The second piece you talked about, the project experience and tools. So we have a lot of standard tools and technology which we use, and the same is available whether you use from office or from home. So we don't see much issue in terms of providing a status or be on the same page. In other words, we do a lot of collaboration tools, which we Jay talks in his language called unified communication. We use heavily Microsoft product and technology. We use other product and technology also. I will not name all because of some internal things. But we use multiple tools and technologies, and those same tools and technologies are available for employees whether they're operating from home or from offices.
Right.
We have tools internally, but we also have some tools which we have kept only to work with the external vendors, because all the vendors may not have the same platform. So that is how I will say. People use all of our employees use these tools and technologies the same way as they are using it from office at working from home. So I don't see any issue in terms of providing update or anything related to that.
Awesome. There was another trend of cloud in the technology business. A lot of companies started moving extensively to cloud, and so what are your thoughts? How important is it to migrate to digital platforms, and what factors do you consider while migrating to cloud and digital platforms?
Digitization is a buzzword, and everyone is running towards that. I would say so, but we have our own PepsiCo philosophy and PepsiCo strategy, to digitize and to automate and to to support these two things. We have adopted the cloud strategy. This strategy was developed almost 2 to 3 years back, and which is a phase-based approach. We identified cloud service provider as part of the strategy. We set up our own based on our standard the infrastructure piece to ensure that we are secure and having dedicated connectivity to the cloud service provider. Once we set up the base platform, then we start adopting cloud first, meaning if anything and everything which we are adopting today, if it can directly go to cloud first, in place of putting it in on-prem or distributed environment and then migrating it to cloud. So cloud first adoption strategy has been adopted. We are working on a phase-wise manner, to identify workload from on-prem environment which can be moved to cloud. And as part of that strategy, we are working, identifying application sites which can move, which is required to continue, in the environment for longer period. So we will invest them, move it as is, or move it with modernization, and then enhance it depending upon the scenario and the type of application which we have. Coming back to digitization again, the digital is part of our strategy again, and we have identified certain opportunities, in different verticals, so that we can cater to our customer fast. That is the primary objective. We can provide faster, innovative product to our customer using the technology. So that is the objective, and I think we are pretty good in terms of moving into the direction using the technology, and then cloud is supporting us to adopt digitization faster in as per our strategies.
Right. So, my third question is, what steps has your organization taken for SIP connectivity, to the MS Teams and WebEx nodes, and the interoperability between new chat applications and voice capabilities?
Okay, so depending upon the service provider, we have either dedicated, express route kind of solution, for example, or we have very thick pipe, depending upon the service provider connecting to that. We would love to have, wherever possible, to have our own dedicated connectivity. And Tata is one of our service provider. I don't know whether Jay is aware about it or not, and we use them in a large way. Other than we have other service provider also. I will not name others because Tata is sitting here. But coming back to your point, depending upon the services which we are taking, from various service provider like Microsoft or other service provider, we have decided, either to have dedicated routes and express routes, to those service provider, or we are having very thick internet, connectivity with those service providers. So from a strategy perspective, our preference will be always to have dedicated, so that we can rely upon it, and if dedicated is not possible, then we go for the shared infrastructure or network bandwidth per se. Hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. Thanks, Anil. Jay, if you want to throw some light, since you've been working with a lot of organizations, what are the best practices that you've seen organizations have taken on this?
Sure. Absolutely, Khushbu. Obviously, the couple of the points which I would like to reflect, which Anil has highlighted. Company like PepsiCo, global in size and global in nature, has to be a front runner when it comes to technology, right? So, and that's a must, and that's given. And then we heard it from Anil, right? So they are not suffered a lot, whatever actually happened during the pandemic, and that's the kind of so one has to aspect. So there are the customers who are actually still in the silo stage, wherein there is not much of the digitalization happened, or just they started transforming or integrated state. But where are the organizations like what you heard from Anil? It's a completely kind of a transformed organization. So that's a journey one has to look at it. In the transformation journey or in the digital journey, where is the particular customer is actually standing at today, and what is tomorrow and what is the future is what the first point. And in that aspect, I would strongly agree to Anil that the UCC, at least if we have to talk about the UCC is obviously part of the UC and CC, the Unified Communication and Contact Center part of it. From the UC perspective, I see significant force, or at least I can say 100% is cloud options today, right? None of us is actually using an on-prem solution for a meeting. Like being on this call, it's all cloud solutions. You name any hyperscalers, it's all cloud, and then that's the scale that you can get it. One, obviously, the feature-rich solution, the scale and the flexibility of logging in anywhere, right? And we heard from Anil that anywhere operations, right? You can't define where the customer has to be. You can't define where the employee has to be. You need to serve the customer wherever, anywhere, right? And then you need to enable the employees also wherever he is, anywhere. And you also use the technology to develop or deliver the business services anywhere. So this kind of a situation is where one has to think through and apply when it comes to the digital transformation, cloud migration, and so on and so forth. That's the first aspect of it. Coming back to the CC, it's not as great as the UC, which is moved 100% cloud, or at least a significant part of the cloud migration has actually happened. CC is still, there are regulatory requirements, there are compliance needs, there are business-specific environment, which is actually still restricting some of the cloud migration and digital migration. And there is investment aspect as well, right? So there is a investment already made on a particular technology. They need to retire that. They need to look at the ROI. And if there is ROI is actually happening after a year or two, they need to wait for it, because they cannot just move to the cloud just because of the cloud has come, right? So they need to look at what is the right strategy with respect to one, obviously looking at the productivity, be at the speed with respect to the technology changes, but at the same time, he has to look at the investment that he's already made. So I think these are the multiple combinations to look at it. And I know Anil's actually called out, we have a great partner with PepsiCo, and we respect that partnership, and thanks Anil for all that. I think these are all the couple of points which I think one has to reflect when we are actually discussing transformation, the cloud migrations, or the technology shift specific to account, because this is specific to each customer. If somebody else doing it, we don't really need to do it, right? So what is applicable for us, what is that really mandate for us, is what we need to look at it for. And to that extent, I think PepsiCo is obviously a front runner. We know it.
Good.
Great. My next question, Anil, is for you, just to understand, how do you measure CX? And could you share some light or techniques for emerging CX heads that they can use?
Interesting question, and there's a lot of discussion and and divide happening now. Earlier we used to talk about only CSAT, but now we are talking about Net Promoter Score. So there are two things which we are not from IT perspective, we are not serving to external customer. We are rather serving to our internal customers. So and two kinds of provide. One is day-to-day operation, and another is I will say the new projects and associated delivery. So we have decided to measure CX in two ways, basically. If we talk about, one is NPS, another is CSAT. CSAT is the old traditional way of handling and managing it. So we are still managing or measuring our help desk, support desk, those kind of teams of solution performance based on the CSAT, and we say that with our service customers based on their interaction, and then basis that we measure it's very standard from 0 to 5, and over is measuring you 4 and 5. 5 is where the maximum rating, and then you calculate your CSAT. Coming to Net Promoter Score, this is a new concept which we introduced I think sometime last year, and we are measuring this specifically for a deliverable of our services, specifically for new project and those kind of things. So at the end of the project, we send a survey to our stakeholders. We identify stakeholders as part of the process, and then we expect them, to fill a response to you, which is rating from 0 to 10. 0 could be, not at all likely. 10 could be extremely likely, and then you remove neutral response, blah blah blah, and then the subtract the percentage of detractors from percentage of promoters, fuel, and NPS score. So this is the new thing which we have introduced from last year, and we are still maturing in that area. This is the new way of measuring our deliverables. So NPS and a combination of NPS and CSAT is what we are following in our plans.
Awesome.
So if I it's an interesting, obviously moving to NPS is I think all the companies are actually looking at it, and then that is where one we can actually scale ourselves and then obviously perspective. From the customer experience perspective, Anil, what you would like to understand, and I know you've been in a different industry, right? You've been in BFSI, you've been in fast FMCG, you've been in manufacturing, you've been in different verticals and different business in your overall revenue. So what I would like to understand, because you've been usually in PepsiCo, you've been in a long tenure, but in the previous company and looking at this, how critical the customer experience is, and what is the technology part of playing the customer experience? Because that's where I think we as a technology partner, and in fact we've been engaging and discussing with this topic with many CIOs across industry. And what we would normally understand is that the customer experience is a must for any business to stay relevant in that industry, and that stands first, right? So I think you were in a different industry so far. So how critical the technology part when it comes to a customer experience is what I could have some light around.
Point, Jay, let me, and I think personally, this is my personal opinion, of course. As the IT is evolving, from the time of we used to call it EDP to information services to information technology and whatnot. As the IT is evolving, the measurement of performance is also becoming critical and important. Because IT is no more like a back-end function. In any organization, certain companies, like ours, IT is sitting on the desk of the CXOs and making decision, adding value to the business. IT is part and parcel of the business. That is why it is very important to have customer satisfaction, measure. And I think with the change in the IT scenario or the roles and responsibility of the function per se, newer tools, newer investment is coming, newer technology is coming, and you are moving out of purely data processing organization to using data to make decisions. And that is why, it is important, for measuring those things, and measurement values are also changing. Measurement processes are also changing. CSAT used to be like de facto standard earlier, which used to be generally done by, the service provider. But then CSAT has been adopted by IT, as a whole. And it used to be limited only to, how I'm providing my help desk services, just, to begin with. Then from that stage, it has now moved to, overall IT roles and services, and then CSAT has moved from CSAT to NPS. If you ask me, NPS is a better measure because you are asking a specific question related to a particular delivery, and that helps you where you have gone wrong and where you have done right, and then you have opportunity to correct it in your next delivery. You are getting feedback from defined stakeholder. Getting feedback is very important. Still, you will not get 100% response to your surveys, but if you get the maximum response to your surveys, it's very critical to know how your stakeholders are thinking. um, there are certain organizations where you may have multiple choices. Not only your internal IT is the only the service provider. Certain companies directly go and work with service provider like marketing functions or some other functions. So in those scenarios, for internal IT to be having better services, becoming a good service provider is very important and critical. And that is where I personally feel these technologies tools like NPS plays an important role.
It's an excellent insight, and obviously I strongly agree to it. Yeah, so that's how we can definitely measure ourselves, and then we can keep increase our benchmark and scale ourselves to a better height, right? So great, thanks for that insight. Yeah, please go back.
Awesome. And then my last question is, if you can share certain best practices, do's and don'ts for our other CIOs and peers in the community. So any best practices or do's and don'ts that you would like to share?
Yeah, there are best practices is a very abbreviated word people use. Something which is good working the best way in my organization may not work in other organization. But there are few things which will from IT and CIO perspective is one thing, or few things rather I should say. One is you need to be up to date what is happening in the market. Time is gone that you continue doing whatever you were doing for years and years, and not adding value. So you need to know what is going on, and you need to understand the technology. May not be as equally good as Jay may understand, but at least understand and appreciate the technology and see how can you adopt it in your organization to deliver better value or services. So that is one. Second piece is you need to take risk. The time is gone that you continue doing what you were doing. You have to take risk, calculative risk. Bring new tools, new technologies, demonstrate your capability to, or sell your capability, not demonstrate. To your leadership, and ask investment. When I say ask investment, it's like Jay is going to a customer and asking business. Same thing happens to a CIO to go to his managing director or chairman, and ask funding for initiatives. How he can ask funding? One is whether he has a good business value or good business proposition to the table. So that is the second thing which I will say. The third thing is information security is very important, critical these days. It was critical earlier also, but it was put on the back burner when now people, the leadership of the businesses start seeing the impact, that someone can come and hit you hard and stop your business. Those leadership teams are also very serious about, information security. Information security should be part and parcel of your strategy. You have to protect you from all aspects, external, internal, internet, all sorts of things. You imagine whatever worst can happen to you and prepare yourself for that. So that is the third thing which I will say. Fourth is invest in your teams. You are as good as your team is. If you're not investing, you will be behind of your game plan. And identify good resources, invest in them, and retain them. Recruiting a good guy is very easy. but retaining him is very difficult. Retaining will require, money is not the matter these days. The Gen Zs and Gen Ys and whatnot. We are old now, but all these guys, money is not, money does not matter to them. So you need to recruit good talent, retain them, and use them. You cannot make them busy. Like if Gen Zs and Gen Ys are not like 18 hours busy, they will leave you. Trust me. Whatever money you are giving is immaterial to them. So they feel very uncomfortable if they are sitting idle. So make use of them. Invest in your resources, train them, and then last but not least, learn yourself. Identify couple of learning opportunities during the year and ensure that you are also learning. Along with your learning, conduct sessions to your leadership team, on newer tools and technology, because if they know how data analytics, how data science, for example, how AI, ML, AR, VR, if they know certain things about that, probably it will be easy for you to convince them and invest into those tools and technology. So those are few things I can, Khushbu and Jay, I can think of. Coming back again, I know best practices are different for different organizations, but there are certain things which one, as an professional, should do, which I thought of sharing with you.
Very true.
Really, Anil, I think it's very true. And in fact, I've heard a couple of new, which is more important and critical when it comes to the best practices. It doesn't need to fit for one industry, but across industry. I think the points was really great. Things like selling is anyway part of your life, right? When I'm selling to an organization, when say has to go and sell it internally for getting the fund, it's just a process. And beyond that, obviously, like what you said in terms of investing that time, and that too with the Gen Y, Gen X kind of a team, because you're right, absolutely. Today, money doesn't matter, right? They are just looking for something else beyond money. So that does it. And I think that those are all the, and then we've been seeing this. This is not just a discussion shake, but we've seen this is an existing phenomena in the market, right? Awesome. Great points, Sunny.
Good. Thank you.
Great. Excellent insights, Anil. I'm sure our viewers, our CIO peers are going to get wonderful insights from this session. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey and best practices with all of us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jay, for...
Thanks, Anil. Absolutely. Thanks.